Brilliant stuff. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining me, David. Would you mind just, I'll introduce myself. My name's Dominic Johnson. I'm the publisher at Luxury BnB magazine. It's a trade magazine focusing at owners and managers of bed and breakfast, guest houses, boutique hotels and holiday lets. I'm joined today by David of the British Sussex Gin Festival, apologies. And welcome, David. Can you please introduce yourself briefly and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, my name's David Hill. As you just said, I'm the festival director for the UK's largest outdoor gin festival, which is Sussex Gin Fest. And that's just one of the hats I wear. I run a group of businesses and we produce a number of things, which actually includes the gin festivals and slightly different, but we also produce the main family pantomime in the city of Brighton and Hove, because that's my background. I've come from a theatrical background. And then we run a group of businesses. At the core of what we do, Dominic, is events. You know, we're an events business, events professionals, and that's really at the nucleus of the business, really.
Yeah, brilliant. Obviously, the gin industry is doing fantastically well at the moment, and often, as is often the case, there is an event side to the gin industry, if we call it that. Obviously, one element is festivals, but would you just sort of expand a little bit on what sort of events would be within the gin industry events list?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things I just want to pick up on what you've just said. And the first thing is not necessarily answering the question, but I will do that, is that you quite rightly said that the gin business is continuing to, to explode. And one of the things I've discovered in the last, since I've been in the business of gin in the last 5 years, is every year everybody tells me that, that the trend is tapering off, the bubble is about to burst, everybody's going to be switching to rum or whiskey. And honestly, I don't see any evidence of that whatsoever. And that's not to say that rum isn't becoming popular again, because I know it is. I love a glass of scotch, but gin continues to boom. The distilleries, if you track the figures, there are more distilleries, opening than there were 2 years ago. So I just think, the whole gin craze continues, and I don't see it stopping in any way, shape or form, which segues into your question, really, which is, I suppose the activities that have started to happen around this gin craze and this ginaissance that we're experiencing at the moment. And yes, I think, events are a big part of that. So we found a position in the market where we have been a bit, I suppose we've gone bold and big. In the sense that we've decided to, let's say, replicate a traditional festival model, which is outdoor, big main stage, a very good music program. Whereas, that's not actually to the detriment of some of our colleagues that actually tour the country with their gin festivals. And what they do, their model is very different. So they turn up in a city or a town. It's always an indoor venue, so they're weatherproofed. They tend to do sessions, but equally, it's just playing to the market of gin lovers out there that want to go and spend an afternoon sampling all these amazing artisan small batch gins. I think on top of that, then you've also seen now a craze of, distillery tours, because there are so many gin distilleries popping up. Then those gin distillers are also using what they're doing as an opportunity to create a sort of secondary income by showing people what they're doing in terms of going on distillery tours. I know we've got a local gin literally down the road from where our offices are here in Brighton, and it's called Brighton Gin. And Kathy and the team there, they're doing in normal times, they would be doing, distillery tours and sort of events that they actually do there, in the small distillery that they're using. And then you've got all the smaller things that happen, like gin tasting events. And I'm sure you've been to some. I've been to lots of them, and yes, they're smaller, but equally, people just love anything at the moment to do with gin. And one of the things one of the things we're looking at actually right at this moment in time, in advance of our Sussex Gin Fest, because we've got a studio here, it was one of the things we did in the lockdown was we built a studio, is to do a gin tasting streamed event. Yeah. So, you know, a virtual gin tasting event, which of course we will unashamedly use as a promotion for the festival, but equally we're just very keen to do it, and to do it in an authentic way, and to get the gin distilleries involved, and do it in, you know, as a live streamed event, which I think will be very popular.
Certainly, and I think that those sorts of things are the thing that the cocktail delivery, and it was just, you know, a year ago never even thought about it, but now it seems to be a very popular and a really good thing. And there's anybody, you know, connecting anybody that's got a common interest virtually is always seems to be working. Now that's really good to see it so buoyant. So the Sussex Gin Festival, please tell us about it. What would people expect when they arrive, and how long does it last, and all these the practical elements, and also the more less practical.
Yeah, I mean, it was an idea that sort of started to, excuse the pun, distill 5 years ago, and we started it on Brighton seafront in a very small boutique way with 1,500 punters thoroughly enjoying themselves, and we kept it very Sussex based. There was only Sussex gins on site, but it's grown, and I think actually, unfortunately, if we'd have been able to do it last year, we'd have probably seen it based on tracking the ticket sales up until the pandemic hit. We were probably due to double our size again last year, which would have been very exciting. But, you know, I think we'll have a great festival in July. And we've extended it so that we've got 3 definable, let's say, gin zones, Dominic. We've got Sussex is still very at the heart of what we do. You will find more Sussex gins at our festival than you will find anything else. You know, we are called Sussex Gin Fest. You know, so Sussex is very much at the heart of the festival, and we use that as well from the point of view of food. So, you know, we and I'll come on to that. We think very carefully about how the food offer is positioned. But then on top of that, we have a best of the rest zone, which is really the neighbouring counties, Kent, Surrey, where, you know, they've also seen an explosion in you know, small gin distilleries. So they come along, and that forms the best of the rest. And then we also have a gins of the world zone, where we've got international gins being showcased. And interestingly, this year, in fact, we've literally just secured them. We've got Slovakian gin coming and taking part this year, which will be very exciting. And then, you know, we think very carefully about the food. So you know, we run this festival from a let's say a brand and marketing point of view. It's all about the gin, but the food is very important because people are with us all day. So, and it's an elegant festival, it's a classy festival, and so we're very careful about the type of food, the level of quality, that it's very complementary. So the best example that I always give about the food at our festival is you will not see a battered burger van at our festival. What you might see, Dominic, is you might see beautiful gourmet burgers, cooked, you know, medium rare, and that's what you will see. And you know, that we think very carefully about the food proposition. Obviously, in the gins of the world zone, you will find paella and you will find Thai food. And then I suppose then in terms of the festival itself, the focus becomes the main stage. We have a main stage. We have a couple of stages. The second one is a more acoustic, chilled out, you know, sit on hay bales and just, you know, sip your gin and tonic to some lovely acoustic music. But in usual times, it's fair to say that once we get to around 7 o'clock in the evening, the field is dancing, Dominic. Having had several gin and tonics, and some great music and some great artists, and we'll be announcing a headliner very shortly, which is very exciting because we've never really had a sort of known headliner before, so we've reached that heady position where we could announce a headliner. We're not at the Rolling Stone stage yet, though, Dominic. So I just want to manage expectations.
But they'll have had more gin, so yeah. That's absolutely fantastic. So yeah, lastly, I just wanted to touch on your recommendation. Obviously, you're a gin expert. We wrote a feature about an honesty bar. You appreciate an honesty bar is something that people, a lot of our readers need to use honesty bars as a good way of selling alcohol, whatever, but they also want a full-time bar person. Do you have anything you could think of? First of all, I'd like to talk, if you wouldn't mind, talking about any gins you particularly recommend, maybe one from Sussex and one from not Sussex. And then maybe if you could talk about, with the Honesty Bar article, a lot of people, we got some experts involved, and they're recommending cans of gin and tonics, or, mixed gin cocktails or whatever. And I just wondered if you had any ideas about what you thought about them, and if you had any recommendations along that line.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things I would say really with regards to gin, and obviously I prefix this with "this is my opinion." I think sometimes in the gin world, some of the more well-known premium gins are almost kind of they're sort of looked upon slightly in a shady way now, because they have made it to the supermarket shelves. You will find Whitley Neal in Waitrose. You will find Silent Pool in Waitrose. And I think sometimes I do hear people say, it's a supermarket gin. Well, the thing I would say about those brands is that the reason they've made it to the supermarket shelves is because the quality of the product is absolutely fantastic. And, the fact that they've got to a stage in their gin story that they've managed to get into Waitrose or, into Harvey Nicks or wherever it is they're retailing their gins, I think is testament to the product. So I'm a big advocate. I love small batch, artisan, boutique gin distilleries, but equally I have the utmost respect for some of the bigger brands. And the one thing I would love to mention is Sipsmiths, because it's an independent company,
one, isn't it?
And and the thing with Sipsmiths is it changed the game, and all the small gin distilleries owe their livelihoods now to Sipsmiths, because they got the law changed, which allowed gin distillers to distill at a much smaller volume, because the law had been in place that you had to distill at a much higher quantity, let's say. So I absolutely love their products, particularly their flavoured gins. I think we sold out of them at our Gin Fest in 2019. So I think it's a great brand. And then obviously I'm going to talk up Sussex because it's the county that I'm from, and we have some incredible gins in Sussex. I mean, it's one of the counties where it has really seen an explosion, and all across the county, right the way across the county, we see different gin brands and gin distillers. There's a particular favourite of mine. I think I mentioned it in the article, and I like it as well because there's a slight show business link, which is Ditchling Gin. And Ditchling is a very small village in Sussex, but it recently came to the attention of the world's media when Dame Vera Lynn died, because she lived in Ditchling. So the whole of the world media sort of descended on Ditchling for the day of the funeral. But it's a fantastic gin, a really high quality gin, and the people that that own that are just such lovely people, and they're on a great story. And yeah, so I'm interested to see what happens actually with Ditchling Gin. In terms of the cans, yeah, again, I mean, it kind of divides opinion, doesn't it? You know, I mean, do I think that do I prefer to drink a gin out of the bottle in a lovely gin glass, you know, with the tonic poured separately? Of course I do, you know. Equally though, I think they provide a very good solution, you know, particularly where you've got, you know, honesty bars. I think there's you know, they're a really neat solution. And in my opinion, you know, I often sample them. The product seems very good. You know, I rather like them, and certainly I use them. If I was going, you know, I live very close to the beach. If I'm going down to the beach for a picnic in the summer, that's often the most convenient way of doing it, is, you know, to just, you know, shove the bag full of those, you know, pre-made drinks, so you don't have to worry about, you know, pouring, you don't have to worry about glass, you know, yeah, so I'm a fan of them.
Okay, good. So you're not too highbrow for
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. And then finally, the tea. How key is the tea? And do our readers need to include? I mean, it always seems to be a pairing, doesn't there? A particular, now that, you know, it used to only be slimline and regular. Now we've got all sorts of flavoured tonics, and there seems to be a pairing going on. What are your thoughts on that? And is that quite a nice way of playing with things on the bar?
I think it is, and I think it's terribly important. I think because, I mean, in essence, what's happened in that particular marketplace, and again, it's an area that I've become quite knowledgeable of, and I've got relationships with, you know, several of the premium mixers, you know, mixer brands. But I think for a long time, you know, and I can remember it because I'm 52, if you had a gin and tonic, you in 90% of the bars, restaurants, at home, you'd be served a Schweppes. And that's in no way me casting any kind of aspersions on Schweppes, because it's served us well for many years. And they're obviously changing their product now. You know, they're looking at more premium mixers. I think the big thing, the point to make, I think, Dominic, with the mixers, whether it's a Fever Tree, you know, whether it's Folkentons, or these, you know, again, artisan, high quality premium mixers, is there's such a choice now. So, you know, you don't just have to have a slimline tonic. You can actually have a Fever Tree elderflower tonic, so that you can actually add the sort of the flavour, if you like, through the tonic and not necessarily through the gin, because a lot of people, I suppose the more traditional gin drinkers, yeah, some of them don't like the flavours. You know, they want a straight up, high quality, you know, London dry. But you can have fun with the mixers. I mentioned Folkentons, and you know, that's a good example. Ditchling Gin, in my opinion, works really well with their Earl Grey tonic, and that's their Earl Grey tonic, Dominic. That's a recommendation for you. Their Earl Grey tonic is absolutely phenomenal. It's I mean, it's fantastic, and it's unique to them. You know, it's a unique tonic to them, but it's a brilliant mixer. It really adds just something to the drink. And yeah, I think that the mixers, the whole explosion of the you know, the mixers, and Fever Tree really were at the forefront of that, has been very exciting.
So yeah, you, as an owner of a property, of a B&B or a guest house, you could sort of bring people, play with it, and you could offer, and it'd be a nice little thing for people to dip into, wouldn't it? It's really
yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic, David. Thank you ever so much for your time. I will stop recording now, and thank you very much for your time. And we'll be releasing more information about the festival in our magazine shortly.